It is useful to recall that when Republican Scott Brown of Massachusetts won a special election to the Senate, ending the Democrats' filibuster-proof majority, Republicans pounced on that to block everything possible. In our fourth story, how would the White House deal with a Republican and radicalized House and a Senate that Democrats hold, but in which they need 7, 8, or even 9 Republicans just to break filibuster? And if you thought that all those ads from the Karl Rove monolith would finally stop after Election Day, sorry. The outside political groups plan to advertise against Democrats during a lame duck session of Congress. No matter what happens tomorrow, the lame duck session of Congress will obviously be controlled by the Democrats till January of next year. And the Dems hope to deal with those expiring Bush tax cuts for the rich, among other possible items. But the Rove-generated American Crossroads and Crossroads GPS will advertise against Democrats when Congress returns. This is according to the New York Times. Beginning Wednesday, 2012 is on as well. The chairman of American Crossroads, Robert Duncan, saying, quote, "It's a bigger prize in 2012, and that's changing the White House. We planted a flag for permanence, and we believe that we will play a major role for 2012. Which brings us back to the lame duck session, because if Democrats can't pass the Disclosure Act or Disclose Act, which could force those outside groups to disclose donors, then Democrats must decide how to counter that current Republican money advantage. Let's bring in Washington Post columnist E.J. Dionne, also, of course, senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. E.J., good evening.
Good to be with you, Keith.
Obviously, regardless of outcome, Republicans would howl at anything the Democrats try to pass in a lame duck session, even a bill saluting chocolate. So what should the Democrats try to pass in the lame duck session besides a bill saluting chocolate?
Well, there are a lot of things they could pass. An end to Don't Ask, Don't Tell would be a good idea. The unemployment insurance extensions, the DREAM Act to help the kids of illegal immigrants who've done all the right things, a bill to deal with Chinese currency overvaluing, the fact that Chinese currency is overvalued, even a new START treaty. Some of these things might actually pass, but the Republicans will not howl about one thing. At the end of this year, the cut in the inheritance tax, we have no inheritance tax in the country right now. And if there's one thing conservatives seem to care about, it's making sure that wealthy people don't pay estate taxes. And, you know, when you turn to January 1, all the high old rates come back. Paul Krugman referred to it as Throw Grandma Off the Train Act of 2001. So they're going to want to deal with that. That may give room to try to make some deals on other taxes. And then the question is, do you pass all of the Bush tax cut extensions, or is there a real fight? I think the Democrats should put up a fight. They might as well vote on principle after the election. Many of them were afraid to do it before the election.
What is the reality of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and Karl Rove money mean for the Democrats looking forward? Do they have to? Should they be more concerned during the lame duck session of coming up with their own slush fund, if you will, to fight fire with fire in the next 2 years?
You know, I think what the Democrats are worried about is they're going to be fighting tanks and missiles with muskets and bows and arrows. Yeah. I mean, the amount of money that I think the Republican side, particularly the part that's very close to corporate interests, can raise compared to what the Democrats can raise. I mean, they can raise a fair amount of money, but I think the risk of being outspent is enormous. And I wish I could just sit here and say, this won't happen because we will reform the system to get rid of this secret money. Now, I think that's going to happen someday, but I think it's going to take a scandal to do that. So the Democrats are going to have to play in this arena to some degree, I think very unfortunately, but I just don't know if they're ever going to be able to catch up with the kind of money that the Republicans have.
One of the explanations from the White House about worst-case scenario in the House in particular is that the president can still get a lot done in the next 2 years because he has all the elements of health care reform to enact and sort of guide and such. But obviously, wouldn't they, and we've already heard Tea Party candidates talk about subverting whatever the Supreme Court rules by not funding whatever the ruling pertains to. Would we not see the Republicans in a Republican-controlled House simply try to unfund, defund, or John fund, the health care reform process?
I think they are going to try to gut it indirectly. First of all, a lot of the Republican states, there'll be a lot of new Republican governors. They're committed not really to setting up the exchanges that are required so people can buy health insurance. There are opportunities in Congress not to fund parts of it. So they can really try to undercut it. I think that leaves no other alternative to the Democrats and the president but to try to make the case for this in a way they haven't been able to make it before, because they're going to have to defend what this bill does, what it's trying to do, and it could be an opportunity to start winning the argument again. They passed this thing. They'd better defend it if they're going to see it come into effect in a few years.
Washington Post columnist E.J. Dionne. As always, E.J., great thanks for your time tonight.
Great to be with you.